The Avengers were first summoned by Stan Lee and comic book mastermind Jack Kirby, which was then published by Marvel Comics in 1963. With half a century of adaptations and transformations, we look at the Avengers and focus on how they have utilized different platforms through media and semiotics, the interactivity between characters and audience members which is applied to the franchise, and how Marvel has created their own audience to engage in a shared world. As many comic book enthusiasts would know that the comic was first published in 1963. The comic went through half a century of adaptations and a lot of characters being added. The two comic books that really influenced the film can be seen as The Ultimates by Mark Millar and Brian Hitch, and the first 16 issues of The Avengers by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. The first comic demonstrates the same narrative structure. Iron Man, Hulk, Captain America, Thor, Black Widow, and Hawkeye. Although they unite during the film, Marvel connected some characters using their individual films. We have noted that the creators, perhaps in response to an explosive popularity of the Avengers universe, have exaggerated the diegetic links between the characters. Selecting a total of the 5 films, Iron Man, The Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, and Captain America, all have an ultimate connection to the film. Starting with Iron Man, the connection that got all comic nerds and general public talking occurred after the film in the end credits, when Nick Fury, who was the leader of the organization S.H.I.E.L.D., approaches Stark on the idea of the Avengers. During The Incredible Hulk, once again the connection is seen after the credit scene. Tony Stark approached General Ross over the discussion putting the team together. One of the main quotes that was acquired from this scene was made by Tony Stark, which was, "That super soldier program was put on ice for a reason," thus a reference to Captain America. At the end of Iron Man 2, creators foreshadowed the return of the Avengers franchise. It had one of the biggest connections seen in all the individual films, both during the film and in the end credits. To begin with, Coulson and Fury outwardly talk about bringing in Stark for the Avengers, however feels that he isn't needed. This is the first film where Black Widow was introduced at the beginning of the film. Two of the biggest connections are when Stark uses Captain America's shield to level a laser beam, and after the end credit sequence shows Agent Coulson discovering Thor's hammer in the desert. Captain America is the last individual film to see the connection to the Avengers. It is made through Tony Stark's father, Howard. It's his technology in which they use to create the military super soldiers. He even creates the famous shield which is used by Captain America. The very last connection is seen after the end credit sequence, where Fury recruits Captain America to be a part. The Marvel franchise has surpassed the film and comic platform and has even gone as far as toys, video games, and merchandise. From such creations like toys and video games provides the audience a chance to create their own narrative in the Avenger world, where the possibilities are endless for the consumer.
Academic Elizabeth Evans is skeptical about the word interactivity and quotes Kerr to the end that interactivity must be regarded as a political rather than a descriptive term, as it is used by many new media advocates to emphasize the user's control over the medium while de-emphasizing the medium's control over the user. In other words, interactive is really just marketing propaganda, as all the potential outcomes have already been decided in advance. This is certainly true of the Avengers interactive website and game that simply involves clicking on highlighted parts of an extended trailer for the film. However, Roland Barthes said it is the audience, not the author, who create meaning, and Evans suggests that, given this myth of interactivity, the audience's power comes from interpreting the text instead of being able to physically tamper with the plot or the characters. Large-scale West Coast transmedia projects like The Avengers and the wider Marvel franchise have extremely vocal and demanding fan bases. These fan bases must, through sheer force of will and expectation, have an impact on the final iterations of transmedia storytelling. In other words, the creators, in fear of potential audience backlash, must work within the diegetic world of the characters and not stray too far from established conventions and expectations. In support of this point, Justin Lewis says, "The power to produce meaning lies nor within the TV message or within the viewer, but in the interaction between the two, what some call the third space." Jonah Wieland, executive producer at comicbookresources.com, said of Kevin Feige, producer of Thor, the X-Men, and the Avengers, that Kevin actually knows what we want. Other studios that make superhero movies often ignore the essence of the character. Paying attention to the essence of the character can be especially important when, according to the New York Times, one critical blog post can create an online brushfire. Evans says that characters are a central, if not the central point of engagement for an audience. She quotes someone from a focus group. "I can forgive a lot of problems with the plot if I like certain characters and enjoy them."
When discussing transmedia and convergence culture, it is impossible to discuss audience, the consumers, without discussing producers, the creators. Jenkins said, media companies are learning how to accelerate the flow of media content across delivery channels to expand revenue opportunities, broaden markets, and reinforce viewer commitments. Increasingly, media industries are being forced to create worlds and transmedia opportunities for their franchises, and audiences are expecting that media franchises span across many platforms. The singular experience is a dying thing. We no longer just read a book. We see the movie based on the book, buy the backpack, visit the site to see which character we are in a quiz, and talk about it on the Facebook page. The Avengers is an enormous example of media producers. Marvel has harnessed transmedia to an enormous advantage. Henry Jenkins, as an expert in transmedia, has even said that Marvel has brought the concept of a shared universe to the mainstream in a way in which no other film company has. I will be discussing the Avengers and the role of the Marvel producers in the enormous success of the franchise thanks to transmedia in the framework of Henry Jenkins' statement, as can be seen on the presentation. When Jenkins uses the word extension, what he is really discussing is media across various platforms. The key to extension in the Avengers is the audience it has created has never before existed. Before the reboot of the Avengers franchise, the Marvel Universe existed almost exclusively for a comic book series, and comic book nerds as such. Now Marvel's Avengers commands a diverse and international audience. The market now caters for all kinds of fans. The comics still exist for the die-hard purist fans, both old and new. The television show Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. extends for fans who enjoy the movies and want to watch more. Internet content exists for the lighter fan base, and the movies are for everyone in all of these categories, plus the rest of the non-Avengers fan world. If transmedia is the art of world making, as Jenkins says, then Marvel truly succeeds in that respect. To fully experience any fictional world, consumers must assume the role of hunters and gatherers, chasing down bits of the story across media channels, comparing notes with each other via online discussion groups, and collaborating to ensure that everyone who invests time and effort will come away with a satisfying entertainment experience. This statement by Jenkins could not be truer in the case of the Avengers.